Long before humanity sketched its first cave painting, long before the first flower bloomed on land, Earth was already perfecting predators that seemed too extreme to be real. Not movie monsters, not myths. Actual living engines of death that dominated their worlds so completely that survival meant staying out of their way. Here's what makes it worse. We have the receipts. Fossilized jaws that could crush bone. Armor plating thicker than steel. Skeletal remains so massive they redefine what dangerous actually means. Tonight, we're descending through deep time, past ancient shorelines, through murky depths, across steaming wetlands, to meet the creatures that make dinosaurs look almost quaint by comparison. Not because they were bigger, because they were built differently. Because if you encountered one, there'd be no roar, no warning. Just a flicker of movement in your peripheral vision, a shape that shouldn't be there, and then silence. But before we dive into these monsters, if you like videos like these, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you never miss the next video. Understanding why these animals unsettle us requires understanding perception. Dinosaurs are culturally iconic, but psychologically distant. We encounter them through exhibits and CGI. Even the fiercest T-Rex feels like entertainment. The predators we're exploring don't have that buffer. They feel engineered. They feel like nature's experiments in asymmetric warfare. What happens when evolution gives an apex predator millions of years, abundant prey, and perfect concealment? And nothing conceals predators like the sea. Consider the Miocene epoch, roughly 12 million years ago. The ocean teems with life, primitive whales, bizarre dolphins, early pinnipeds. And cutting through that abundance moves something that combines the physicality of a shark with the cognition of a mammal. A whale that evolved not to sing, but to kill. Meet Livyatan. Not your typical cetacean. This was a sperm whale relative, armed with the largest functional teeth known from any predator. Massive, conical weapons designed for one purpose: subduing large prey through brute trauma. Imagine encountering it in open water. No dorsal fin breaking the surface. No telltale splash. Just a massive form materializing from below, moving with the deliberate grace of something that knows it can't be outrun. This wasn't a filter feeder gone rogue. This was a calculated hunter targeting other large animals. What makes Livyatan genuinely disturbing is the implication: intelligence combined with overwhelming force. Sharks operate on instinct. Livyatan had mammalian problem-solving ability wrapped in 6 tons of muscle. A dinosaur might charge, Livyatan would calculate. Approach from your blind spot. Strike with the certainty of something that's done this 1,000 times before. Water steals your mobility, your sound, your options. And in that 3-dimensional maze where you can't gain purchase, where every direction is equally hostile, something with teeth the size of your forearm decides your food. That's not an animal attack. That's an execution. If Livyatan represents refined lethality, our next creature represents primordial violence. We're traveling backward now, past the age of mammals, past dinosaurs, into the Devonian period, roughly 360 million years ago, when the ocean's architecture was fundamentally alien. In those ancient waters prowled an armored monstrosity that looked less like a fish and more like a siege weapon, Dunkleosteus. 10 meters of plated fury. The true horror isn't the armor, though, it's the mouth mechanism. Dunkleosteus didn't possess traditional teeth. Instead, it had self-sharpening bony blades that functioned like industrial shears, generating one of the most powerful bite forces ever measured. When those jaws opened, it wasn't organic. It was mechanical. The sound wouldn't be a roar. It would be a click, a guillotine snap echoing through dark water. That finality is what separates it from dinosaurs. Predatory dinosaurs look aggressive, recognizable. You can map them onto modern predators, big cats, crocodiles, wolves. Dunkleosteus is foreign. It doesn't bite in the traditional sense. It closes, compresses, severs. You wouldn't see it approaching through the murk. You'd sense displacement, water moving wrong, pressure shifting. Then those armored jaws would materialize around you, and escape would become a concept from another lifetime. The armor tells you something else too. This wasn't built for quick kills and retreat. This was built for sustained combat. Not every nightmare lives in the open ocean. Some prefer the margins, where water meets land, where visibility drops to nothing, where one misstep becomes irrevocable. Now we're in the late Cretaceous, 75 million years ago. Dinosaurs dominate the landscape, yet the apex predator here isn't always the one on land. It's the one in the water, waiting. These swampy river systems harbored a crocodilian so outsized it transcends animal and becomes an environmental hazard. Deinosuchus. Terrible crocodile. Understatement of the Mesozoic. This wasn't something you could conceptualize escaping. Some estimates put its length at over 10 meters, comparable to a large tyrannosaur, but built on an architecture evolution has been perfecting for hundreds of millions of years. Stillness, camouflage, explosive acceleration. The horror of Deinosuchus isn't aggression, it's inevitability. It doesn't need to hunt you across open ground. It only needs you to do what every terrestrial animal must eventually do in heat: approach water. Consider that trap. You can avoid cliffs, you can avoid fire, but water is non-negotiable. You drink there, cool there, cross there. Deinosuchus weaponized necessity. No ripples, no breathing sounds, just a still surface that looks safe because we're hardwired to trust stillness. Then, eruption. Not dramatic, mechanical. Pure mass and momentum. A sensation, less like being grabbed and more like the ground collapsing beneath you, dragging you into a different world where you can't breathe and physics stops working in your favor. That's why Deinosuchus can feel more oppressive than any terrestrial predator. Dinosaurs exist in your space. You see them. You can imagine options, however futile. Deinosuchus is infrastructure. It's the moment safety becomes retrospective. If the swamp represents intimate danger, the open ocean represents existential dread. The fear of being cosmically outmatched. Picture yourself far from shore. The water has deepened enough that color drains away. Light penetrates weakly, turning your surroundings into graduated darkness where the surface feels less like an escape route and more like a ceiling. And somewhere in that volumetric void moves a predator so massive it recontextualizes the entire ocean. Megalodon. Strip away the pop culture. Forget the documentaries. The genuine terror of Megalodon is proportion. A shark reaching lengths of 15 to 18 meters. A predator targeting prey the size of modern whales. A creature whose fossilized teeth, and we have dozens, are individually larger than a human hand. They don't look like teeth. They look like artifacts, like tools, like something that shouldn't fit inside biology. Now extrapolate what it means to be prey to something that size. You're not being chased. You're being intercepted. Water resistance makes speed relative. You're not running. You're struggling against a medium that fights every movement. And Megalodon wouldn't need to be faster. It would only need to predict your trajectory. The ocean is three-dimensional. You can't see behind, below, or above without constant vigilance. And when something that massive rises from beneath, it doesn't resemble a shark. It resembles a geological event, a shadow too wide, a darkness where darkness shouldn't be, a fundamental alteration of your environment that your brain struggles to process as animal. Here's what amplifies the dread. We lack complete skeletal remains. Much of our reconstruction derives from teeth and vertebrae, meaning our mental image shifts as paleontology advances. That uncertainty doesn't diminish the fear, it magnifies it. When the details are incomplete, your mind fills gaps, and it never fills them conservatively. It defaults to worst-case scenarios, to configurations that maximize threat. Megalodon doesn't need embellishment to horrify, it only needs to have existed. Perhaps the most unsettling realization is what emerged after the dinosaurs vanished. We treat extinction events like conclusions, like danger got filed away into the fossil record. It evolved. The world became hotter, wetter, dense jungle ecosystems sprawling beneath oppressive humidity. And in that post-extinction greenhouse, nature engineered something that disturbs not through teeth or armor, but through sheer wrongness of scale. This is Titanoboa, a prehistoric constrictor from the Paleocene, approximately 13 meters long. No venom, not a quick strike. Progressive, inescapable compression. The terror of Titanoboa is silence. Predatory dinosaurs announce themselves through footfalls. Even massive crocodilians create disturbances, displaced water, subtle movements. A giant constrictor can remain undetectable in plain sight. It becomes part of the environment until it decides otherwise. No footsteps, just reeds bending, vegetation shifting. A disturbance that looks like wind, but moves with purpose, flowing through shallow water like muscle disguised as landscape. And if you registered that movement, you'd understand something paralyzing. It's not moving away, it's turning towards you. Constriction is among the most psychologically invasive forms of predation because it doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like being systematically erased by physics. Your breathing becomes externally controlled. Your skeletal structure becomes a liability. And the jungle doesn't react. Not because it's empty, but because everything else has learned when to be still. When you array these 5 monsters across evolutionary time, a pattern emerges. They're not frightening merely because of size. They're frightening because they embody different species of helplessness. Livyatan. Intelligence weaponized in an alien medium. Dunkleosteus. Ancient machinery optimized for lethality. Deinosuchus. Necessary resources transformed into traps. Megalodon. The ocean itself as predator. Titanoboa. The land as living constriction. Here's the final consideration that should unsettle you. These weren't aberrations. They were successful designs. They existed because their ecosystems could sustain them, because conditions aligned to make these configurations viable. Which demonstrates that Earth doesn't require supernatural intervention to generate monsters. It only requires the right variables. Somewhere in the Hadal zone today, things persist beyond our monitoring capability. Not these exact species, not Livyatan, not Megalodon, but the darkness that concealed them remains. The pressure, the isolation, the sheer volume available for something to exist, unobserved. And that's the uncomfortable truth beneath every fossilized remain. Earth has done this before. It has manufactured organisms that resemble nightmares and function as apex elimination tools. And the only reason you sleep comfortably is because you were born during a calmer chapter of Earth's existence. Tell us in the comments which one of these 5 you find the scariest. And if you want to see more like them, make sure to leave a like and subscribe.